Hi, Margaret.
Yay! Oh, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I've agonized over this so much.
Did you mean to be recording? I just saw that we're recording this.
Eventide records it. It's the Eventide. We're using theirs.
Okay.
And wait a minute, mute, unmute. What? How do I do this? Matt? Matt? I see Lucy.
Hello.
Hey, Lucy.
Hello there.
I see John.
Am I really here? I don't feel like I am. Yeah.
You are.
All right. The camera's not on, but it's working anyway. All right.
Do you see us?
Yes, I see 7 other people.
I see Pam. How do I get Matt is ask to unmute. Matt. How? Does anybody know sign language? Matt.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. We need Linda and Jim
Here comes Matt.
and his, well, now he's gone. He's gone. That must be Ira. Hi,
There's
Ira.
Ira. Hello.
There's Susan.
Hi.
You hear us? Matt has disappeared.
Hello.
Oh, there, wait a minute, there's an unmute. Ask to unmute. Now, John, you're,
I muted to answer a phone call from Candace.
I
She
got you.
can't get in. You need to let her in, Candace.
I don't, I'll admit, sorry, okay. This is a first.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks.
you,
Sorry.
thank you, Charles. I mean, thank you, it's Candace and Charles. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
There's Candace.
Hey. Now we just need Jim and Linda. And let me call them.
A little icon for Jim popped up when I was reading the script just now, Matt's script, which I think indicates that he was looking at it the same time I was.
Jim?
Hello.
I
couldn't get into your Zoom link, so I sent everyone a new one.
No, we're all here except you and Linda.
Where did you get the Zoom link?
It was
the email?
the email, but you have to go into the whole invite.
Yeah, I did. Okay, let's look again. So it's on your email?
Yeah.
Didn't you send a link first that doesn't work?
I
And
sent
then
a link
send
first, it doesn't work. Then I sent the whole invite.
Maybe he's looking at the
Okay.
first one.
So this is what you guys, Margaret, you can do this right now. Just hit on the Zoom on the bottom, just put invite or manage participants, invite, and then just send that to me. That's going to be the easiest.
Okay, invite, and then what comes up? Contacts, email, just email.
You could do it that way, sure. And then just put jimdalglish@mac.com.
And it's not going in.
Yeah.
Default email, you.
These are, did you get her?
Let me see.
Because I didn't get that. I didn't get the, Linda may have gotten the invite. I don't think I got it.
Well, this is yours. No, I didn't get it.
No, I know, okay, wait a minute.
I I just got the link of your Zoom or the
I got you.
Google Doc. No, it's not here. I don't
Bear
have
with
it.
me. Okay, I'm forwarding that whole invite, and the link that works is in that. Okay,
Just a second. Just, I'm gonna try this one right here. Just a second. Okay, it's working. Linda forwarded yours over to me, so you just let me know soon and we'll be there.
I got you. And where's Linda?
Here.
Sitting right next to me.
Oh, okay, you're gonna be on, you're on the same?
No.
Do I have a?
Okay,
There they are.
you're already together. Hey,
So someone has two of them going at the same time.
What's the audio problem?
no, that was my phone with them.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mute it. How do I get rid of the window on the right? So I can have a full screen. Close, that works. There, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, I counted myself, 10. We got everybody.
Hmm.
I know. Yeah, it's a Sunday miracle. Can you hear us, Matt? Or can you?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Yes, okay, all right. Well, welcome. How exciting.
Hey.
Yay.
Mhm.
I'm Margaret. People are getting over colds, I can tell. John, you okay?
No, just water went down the wrong pipe.
Okay. Well, why don't we do introductions and let everybody know who you are and take your time and, inform each other. John, since you start with an A.
Okay, I'm John Dennis Anderson, and I live in Wellfleet. And this is my second year participating in this lab. I understand it's the third year of the existence of the lab. So I came in at the beginning of the second year. And I am a retired professor of communication and performance studies at Emerson College in Boston. I am originally from Waco, Texas, but I came to Boston in 1989 to teach at Emerson and stayed until I retired 6 years ago and moved out here to the Cape. And my background with playwriting is a little unconventional. My training is in oral interpretation of literature or group performance of literature. The performance of literature that's not necessarily dramatic. So I've worked on a lot of adaptations of fiction, some of poetry. I've acted a lot in conventional plays, but the plays that I'm mostly drawn to write have a kind of narrative component. There's a form called chamber theater that I was trained in, which is a way of staging narrative literature with the narrative intact, as opposed to putting everything in dialogue. So that's my unconventional approach to what we're what we're attempting today.
And what is a piece that you have been working on? I know that you entered a piece that you've been working on for a while in the Kaplan, and you were one of the finalists?
Yes, that was a piece that has been evolving for a number of years. It goes all the way back to 1978 in one form. I adapted this long novel for chamber theater for my master's thesis project at Baylor University, and then revived it 7 years later. And then after 30 years passed, I started trying to develop a one-man show out of it that has now evolved through several iterations into a four-person play that was a finalist for the Kaplan Prize. And I have put that away for the time being. I have several other projects that are percolating, and I'm not entirely sure yet which ones I'll be working on for this lab, but they tend to be literary in nature. I do solo performances as authors called Chautauquas. They're humanities programs, grant funded, where I develop a monologue about 30 minutes long in character as writers like William Faulkner, Henry James, Washington Irving, Robert Frost, Ernest Hemingway, etc. And I present the monologue to humanities audiences, usually adult out of school audiences, and then answer questions first in character. So there's an improvisatory quality to it, and then out of character as a scholar. And so that has influenced the kinds of things I've been working on that tend to be about authors in many cases.
Thank you. Thank you. Lucy?
Here.
You're back. You made it to Florida?
Made it to Florida. Welcome to our Airstream trailer. We sold our house back in the spring. We're now full-time going around in a trailer. I'm in Provincetown for 7 months of the year. You probably can hear the dogs in the background. And we work at Coastal Acres Campground for 7 months in Provincetown. This past summer, I was able to write a play during my off time, which I'm hoping to deal with during this whole thing. But Provincetown is definitely my heart and soul creative area, because 9 years ago, I wrote a 10-minute play, which was accepted there. And people were enthusiastic about it and said, do keep writing, do keep writing. So I've been writing ever since. I'm a retired special education teacher in middle school, also a retired minister in the United Church of Christ just this past year. And now my wife and I travel with the dogs, and it's a whole nother adventure. I took 1, 2, 3 different one-act plays down to New York for festivals over the years, and that was terrific. Had a
What
reading. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I apologize. What festival?
2 of them were with the Strawberry One Act Festival, and another one was the what was it called? Midtown International Theater Festival. That was it, and which is now defunct, unfortunately. But that was great. And then we also did a reading of one of my plays at the Dramatists Guild there in Times Square. So I've written 4 different full plays, and 1 musical, and many different 10-minute plays with the Provincetown Theater. So I'm really enjoying it. I have no formal training in how to write a play. I am a storyteller, and that's what I do.
Good. Where are you in Florida, Lucy?
Dade City. We're at Sawmill Campground, which is the largest LBGT, all the alphabet.
That one.
Community. It's fabulous. We just arrived last Thursday. We left the day after Thanksgiving to drive down here. And it's like being in Provincetown. We've got the pool behind us with a bar, and we were at a drag show last night, and it's wonderful.
Wow.
A number of the people that camp at Coastal Acres come down here in the winter. So we're meeting all kinds of people that we've seen before.
Neat.
Yeah.
And Sue? I don't know your, are you
It's Susan.
Susan? Thank
Hi,
you.
yeah.
Susan.
Yep. Hi, everybody. I'm Susan Luminello. Let's see. What can I say? What am I supposed to say? I live here on the Cape. I grew up on the Cape. I had been living in Boston for many umpteen years, and then my wife and I moved to back down here to the Cape, and during the pandemic, and here we are back in the fold. So I'm happy to be here. And in terms of playwriting experience, I had some work done throughout New England. I had my first full-length play done this past spring, The Sherlock Problem, at the Cape Cod Theater Company in Harwich. And I've had some stage readings of other full-length and some smaller, shorter plays done, Boston Theater Marathon, things like that. Let's see, what else can I say?
You were
Uh,
also the third prize winner in the Kaplan?
That's
correct?
right. Yeah, I was, that was a play called Dreamsville. And it's a one woman play, based on an actual person. The woman who created 16 magazine. I don't know if any of you remember. So it's about her life. So I'm not really working on that much anymore. We're trying to work on some other stuff, some shorter pieces, and then a longer piece that I've had kicking around for a while that's way too long, needs to be cut substantially. And I work in publishing, and gosh, I'm happy to be here. So
We're happy you're here. Thank you.
So, and also I don't have Matt's script. So if that was sent, is that a thing? Was that sent out? If so,
It was in the,
I missed that part.
there's a, on the email that had the contact list and the schedule.
Yeah.
It also has a link to the folder where you drop scripts.
Okay, I
in.
completely missed that. So I'll have to
Okay.
go dig around for that now.
Okay.
Sorry about
That's all
that,
right.
folks.
If you don't have it, or after this, I'll make sure you get that folder.
Okay,
can't-
thank you. Thank you.
John, did we lose Matt?
I think we did, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we lost
Oh,
Matt.
boy. Wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute. He's kicked to the waiting room.
Oh, no.
How do I get him out of the waiting room?
Look at participants. On yours, you're the host, so you have to,
Yeah, participants. Okay, admit.
do you see him in the list?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
It says joining.
here he comes, okay.
Hi.
Hey, Matt. Okay. Who was John?
Yes, I'm John Schumann. I'm in Wellfleet. We may have lost Matt. I lost his script about 5 times, but I've got it now and I'm not touching anything. Just staying there. I've been in theater all my life as an actor, director. I have to admit, not as a playwright, so I'm very green. But John Anderson and I have been teaching at Open University of Wellfleet. We did a course on A.R. Gurney and just completed one on Thornton Wilder. And what we did in both classes is, well, in the Wilder is we adapted the novel, The Eighth Day, sections for scenes to read in class, to act. And so we're talking about trying to do that, do a dramatic adaptation of the of the book. And that's what brings me here, plus an interest in trying this. I've written little scenes and things, but never anything more than that as a playwright. So I'm a newbie here in this vein, but I'm excited to be here.
Good. Ira?
Hi.
Hi.
I've sort of got two parts to, or maybe three. Going back to my 20s and 30s, I was really focused on playwriting and really thought that was going to be my career, if at all possible. So I ended up going to the MFA program at Brandeis, wrote a bunch of plays, some on my own, some with a collaborator, had a handful of productions sort of on the off Broadway kind of level. I had one play that was done as a reading at Playwrights Horizons. But as time kind of went on, I've just found I wasn't writing much anymore. And I kind of, I also, like Susan, was working in publishing at the time. I'm working in publishing again now, but I decided to put that aside and to go back to grad school and get a degree in English ed. So for the last 20 years, I've been working as a middle school English teacher in New York area.
Oh.
And my husband and I, just right before COVID hit, decided to move out here to the Cape. We're actually in Truro. And we have a little cottage here, rather small place. And we decided we would see what it was like to live here. It so happened this was sort of like in October, November, December, and then by March, COVID had hit. And so we were, here's where we were. And we've actually decided to stay here and are currently in the process of renovating a house also just down the road in Truro, house from 1920 that was never, it was always a summer house. It was never insulated or heated. So that's been our big project over the last almost year, really. But to come back to writing and this, I had decided that when I retired from teaching that I'd like to kind of get back into writing. And the reason that I wanted to join this theater lab was really as a place perhaps to kind of experiment with some new things and kind of get some feeling for it to sort of see where I'm at now. The last play that I wrote was an adaptation of What Maisie Knew. I've been working on that for several years, actually. But I'm not going to be bringing that here because it's a play that I've completed a couple of times. And I'm looking to get a reading of it, but I don't think it's appropriate, like to bring, 15 minutes of it. I also did one of the 10-minute, not 10-minute, but one of the 24-hour plays at Provincetown Theater. And that's where I got to know John, because he was one of the actors in it and very good. Thank you, John.
Mhm.
And so I think I'll end it there if that gives you enough info.
Uh-huh. Thank you, Ira. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Pamela?
Yes, I'm Pamela Kiranali. I'm known as Mrs. Q to my students. I've been an art and music educator for most of my life, live in Brewster, lived on Cape for about 6 years. I guess I'm called a multidimensional artist. Sounds kind of like a high title, but one art spills over into another. So hence working in music, I've been working in theater as an accompanist, as a music director, and also as a playwright coordinator for K-8 shows. So I've done plays and musical reviews for that age level, including like Metropolitan Opera in the schools program. So that's what I do. Right now, I would like to focus on a bit more of serious playwriting, character development. My ultimate goal is to join a team with musical theater creators and work on a certain aspect of history on a musical show. But I'm also doing these dramatic plays, and I find that I think I need more work on, I don't know if it's character development or a little more cohesive. I think I'm analyzing myself. And the problem is I'm so used to having to see the total picture and write all the details. And as we speak, I have a little Christmas show coming up at one of my schools, a presentation. And when you write for kids, you have to you do put in a lot of directions and for everybody and background, things like that. So that's my story.
Do you write the graveyard?
Oh, I do. Yes.
Oh, tell me just a bit more about that. I thought
I
that
do a
was
lot of crazy
interesting.
things. I work for the Brewster Historical Society, and we have these historic graveyard tours. And so I was asked, even though Sally Gunning, you probably know her name, local author, she's the president of the BHS. I was asked to add in living spirits to the tour to enhance it. And of course, you always get some goofy person who wants to do bloody heads and jump out of trees. And I say, no, we are there to enhance the tour with the emotional and psychological perspective of what it was like to live at that time here in Brewster, especially like sea captains' wives or their kids. So that's what I do. And we just finished our season, was very successful this year, all sold out. So pretty good, pretty happy with that.
Nice. Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Candace Perry. I know you have laryngitis. Are you okay?
I have laryngitis.
Oh, God.
no.
Oh,
This is-
no.
This is the best it's been in 10 days.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
no.
I'll just keep it short. Hello. I won't be reading today. I'll be listening. I'm a playwright. I'm a social worker. I was a traveler. That may be ending. I just got back from Louisiana where I got this. So I'm happy to see you all. And hopefully next time I'll be more with it.
Oh. Candace was a winner of the Kaplan Award. Candace was the playwright in residence at Eventide. Candace was a member of the Provincetown Playwrights Lab. I've taken one of Candace's plays to Dublin. And she's a fantastic writer. John Dennis Anderson, we're going to have to do JDA and JS here and get the J's. Acted in one of Candace's plays that she created in the last lab. Anybody want to say anything else about Candace that knows her? She's a great writer.
John Schumann was in that play too.
Oh, John, you were in it too.
I'm sorry to make Candace talk.
Yeah.
I also did she wrote a play for Janet Lesniak's Farewell, which I was in, which was fabulous experience. So we live about a block from each other, so we reconnect.
Who was that? I don't know. Okay. Jim?
I'm Jim Dalglish. This is my third session with Eventide with this group. I got my MFA from Brown in 1932 in I studied with Paula Vogel. She doesn't speak to me anymore, but I studied with her. Let's see what else. I gave up. I was a book editor for years at Houghton Mifflin. I've been a magazine editor and a reporter, newspaper reporter. I got back into, I gave up playwriting for about 10 years, and then I got back into playwriting when I think it was the first playwrights festival in P-Town. Robin moved, my husband had moved to P-Town. Oh, by the way, I'm living now at Linda's treehouse. Linda's house is right down over there between me and the Panic in Truro. Rob and I gave up our apartment in Quincy, and Linda was grateful. And we were not sure where we're going next. If any of you have any ideas, let me see. Other than that, I got acquainted with Margaret and Linda and Candace for the first run of the Provincetown Playwrights group, the Playwrights Lab, and it was fantastic. It was like life-changing for me. It reintroduced me to writing for the play, for the theater, which I'm much better at than fiction or poetry or any of the other stuff I was dabbling in. With that, let's see what else things. Linda and I won the Kaplan Prize for the play that we wrote. I was a second runner-up this year. Susan, it's wonderful meeting you. Yeah, it's great to see you. Let's see. My plays have been performed. I think I have 25 or 26 plays. They've been performed all over the place. London, New York, P-Town, a lot in P-Town. Also, in the last 7 years, I think 6 of my full lengths have been performed at the Katuitt Center for the Arts. I had a wonderful relationship with them. They like my plays. I love them because they like my plays. And let's see, what other things? Several of them won awards in Alaska and New York. One of my plays we took to Boston. Another one we took to Boston and also Dublin. Linda and I did a play in Dublin. She won an award for acting in it. I was overlooked. I don't know why. Maybe because I was acting in it and people didn't for that. And then Margaret took one of my plays. If you were in P-Town this summer, we did a show called Quickies that had one of Margaret's short plays, one of mine, and one of Linda's, and also a friend, someone who had been in the lab for a while, Paul Asher-Bast, his play. We took that to Dublin and brought it back to P-Town. It was lots of fun. During COVID, I taught myself how to be a filmmaker. I like to direct and produce my own work when I can. It's something I enjoy. I was managing director at Wellfleet Harbor Actors Theatre for a while, and I was also the box office manager at the Provincetown Theatre. And with Linda, we were on the team that created the Provincetown Theatre. Don't blame us.
End of subject.
End of subject there. Yeah. Let's see what other things. But I taught myself how to be a filmmaker. I created a feature film that's been doing quite well on the film festival circuit. It's won awards in London and New York, and I've had real fun doing that. It took about maybe about 30 YouTube videos to figure out how to make a film, which was a huge challenge for me, but I think it paid off. I had a great time.
And the name of that is?
Oh yeah, Teacher of the Year. Another one of my short screenplays has been winning awards. I just decided they've got this thing called Film Freeway that you just submit your stuff, like you just click the button. It charges you way too much for every submission. And all of a sudden I wish it was easier to submit plays. It's much easier to submit films. There we go. I think that's about it. As far as what I'm going to be working on here, I'm not sure yet. I've got 4 plays on the back burner. I may be bringing one up, or I may be redoing or editing the Playground, which was the second place in the Kaplan this year. I'm not sure I'm done with that one yet, so we'll see where that goes.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks for letting me grab.
Linda?
Hi, everyone. Linda Sterner, and I began as an actor, and on Broadway. I did off-Broadway. I did commercials in New York. I lived in New York for 50 years. And then I moved to the Cape and I started acting in plays in the Cape. And Margaret was the one who first auditioned me and put me in a play where I met Jim. And we were then in the Playwrights Workshop where our plays were done. as a writer, I wrote for Theater Mania. I got feature articles and the Banner and something. Well, I can't remember its name. No, at any rate, I was a member of the Actors Studio Playwrights Unit, and my plays were read there, and one were performed. It's mostly my short plays which have been performed, and they've been performed in Tokyo and New York and Dublin and Alaska. And I was also a member of the Women's Project Playwrights group, which was one of the best experiences of my life. It was a group of young women playwrights, and we read our plays every week and learned how to critique and support each other. I'm working at this point, I am working on forever working on this one-woman show, which I've just added 2 characters to, so we can't call it a one-woman show unless I do both the characters. And it's about my search to find who I am. I was adopted and lied to, and I found a birth mother, and she introduced me to a birth father. Wasn't the man. My birth father was a Sicilian man who is still a big mystery to me. So as I'm writing it, I'm including how I'm pursuing this mystery, and it goes ups and downs, and I think I found him, and then no, it's not. It's so that's what I've been working on. And I sometimes think it's, those things that plague you all your life and you never get done, but I want to work on it in this group, and I want to get it done. What? You tell.
Linda was in the original cast of Oliver on Broadway. Yeah. Why she didn't lead with that, I don't know, but that's okay.
It was many years ago, but yeah. So.
And you just went off Cape and did a commercial, right?
I did a film. I did a training film for home healthcare workers. And I've never really done film. I've done commercials, but film I was very uncomfortable with. And I found I love it. I mean, in this stage, you're all out there. Films, you have to be more internal. And I was terrified of it, but I really liked it.
Tell them about your role.
I played an arthritic 80-year-old.
80-year-old Puerto Rican woman.
Puerto Rican. And, no, and I was half French. They changed that. And it was really because one look, I mean, do I look Puerto Rican? No. But honestly, with my history, I could be. Anyway, that's kind of that's who I am, and I'm happy to be. This is my 2nd year in this group, and I was in the playwrights group at the Provincetown Theater, and I did a lot of plays there, mostly directed by Margaret. So I'm very thankful for her being there for me. And
thank you. Thank you.
That's it.
Hi, Matt.
Hello, how are you?
Hey. Could you
Are
tell
you
us
able to hear me
something?
now?
We can hear you. Everybody, can you tell us about yourself? A little bio?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not on the Cape at the moment. I'm currently living in Germany. I've been here for the past couple of years. I'm a high school English and philosophy teacher at an international school here. But my parents live in Brewster. My grandfather lives in Dennis. So I've been on the Cape. And I studied philosophy and creative writing at American University in DC. I ended up getting my master's in philosophy. Spent most of my time in my program writing poetry and short stories. Didn't really find playwriting until a couple of years after I left my program. I had a couple of plays in DC just before the pandemic hit, and then a couple produced via Zoom during the pandemic. Mostly I like to write historical pieces, so historical fiction, period pieces, some stuff that's not in that category, that's just sort of more experimental, existential kind of sort of philosophy inspired stuff. But I sort of my main interest is writing the historical perspective. And yeah, I haven't really been able to do as much writing as I'd like in the last year or so, just because of how busy my schedule is at the moment. And so I'm glad to be able to take part in this, because it's, you know, a structured set time where I get to sort of just stop thinking about teaching for a bit and focus on a piece of work. So yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Matt, what time is it for you right now?
It is 9:11 here.
But it works. It works for you. It's a not
It
school.
works well.
not-
I
yeah,
graded
not-
essays all day, and then now I'm done. So it was perfect.
What grade do you teach?
I teach 10th, 11th, and 12th.
English, and I didn't hear what the other thing was. English and
Philosophy.
fantastic. Thank you. I'm Margaret Van Sant. I was asked to coordinate the lab last year by Candace, and it had already started. So I think I came in partway and did the rest of the year, and then they asked me to do this again. And I truly enjoy working with playwrights very much. I enjoy working with playwrights and actors. I've directed a play by Lucy, Candace, Jim, and Linda. So I've had that great joy of working with their work. I like doing development work on new scripts. My background, I started a theater company in Northampton years ago, City Studio Theater, years ago. My son was what, in the second and third grade, I think, at that time. We did, I became a director at that point because they were not doing female playwrights. And the only way to get them done was to direct them yourself. So that's why when I became a director, I guess we existed for about 4 years, 5 years. We also did Shakespeare in Look Park outside. And then I worked at Virginia Stage Company. I'm from Virginia originally. And then I worked at Long Wharf Theater. And I was fortunate enough to be the literary associate, and I was in charge of the script development, play development work in stage 2, where we had a great development program. Supposedly, you went from our reading series, we did 3 sets of readings, and then if they opted to work with you further, we did a workshop. The workshops were on the same set. We had a set designer design a utilitarian set that worked for all the workshops. So you weren't spending any money on set and costumes and stuff like that. It was all geared towards the playwright. And then ideally you went to a full production if they continued working with you. I worked with some great playwrights in that and some great directors. Then I left there and I came to the Cape, and how did I get to Provincetown? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I came because to be with my sister because she'd been hurt in a car accident. And somebody asked me to direct something. I wasn't going to be doing theater. I was going to be focusing on her. Anyway, I did. I directed, got connected with Provincetown Theater, was amazed at the talent there. I had lived in Provincetown before. And in 1998, it was the 100th anniversary of Provincetown as the oldest art colony in the country. I wrote a grant. We got great funding. And we did plays at the Provincetown. This is before the theater facility existed. at the Provincetown Inn. And that's when I met Candace and Jim and Linda, and we started the Provincetown Playwrights Lab that existed for many years. And we met regularly on Sundays, and we did a playwrights festival where we did new scripts, we did readings, we did full productions. And that's something I want to bring back. That's a goal, to bring back new playwrights festivals, a big goal. And I went to Goddard and got an MFA in interdisciplinary arts. And I've taken plays to the Dublin International Theatre Dublin International Gay Theatre Festival, plays written by Candace, by Jim, by Linda, and other playwrights. What else? Oh, we just came back from Dublin, as Jim said, and Linda, and we did our 4 scripts at the Art House, which was a great experience. And I'm really looking to, again, do a new playwrights festival sometime in the fall. The biggest, I think, yes, yeah. There's a big grant due. I'm working on a grant. I know it's hard being a playwright. I know it's hard living off of being a playwright. I know it. The whole point is to get the work out there, get great work out there, and to see how it can move beyond the Cape, and have a life. So anything else I need to say? I think that's it. Let's have questions for each other. Any questions? Anybody have questions about what anybody said? This thing, John and John, I don't know why. I really don't know why. But when you talked about the Thornton Wilder and connecting it with our experience in Dublin and the Dublin Festival that was started on the whatever anniversary of the birth of Oscar Wilde, for some reason, this play thing keeps popping up in my mind called Wild and Wilder. I don't know why. It's something with Oscar, where did they, I don't know. I'll have to pursue that. It's something that's sticking.
Is there
Wild and Wilder, huh?
Is there a play?
No, I don't know. But I'm finding some, go ahead.
Today in the New York Times, I read an account of a play by John Kelly about Samuel Stewart, who was a gay man who became a tattoo artist and a pornographer, but he'd had an affair with Thornton Wilder, who was a good friend of Gertrude Stein's. Anyway, there's this play that was reviewed in today's New York Times about Samuel Stewart. So there's a kind of a connection between
I'm gonna have to look it up.
Wilde and Wilder, but Stein and Wilder anyway.
Yeah.
Stein
I
introduced.
have written plays. And one of my plays was a finalist in the Kaplan, and it was about Goody Hallett, the well-known witch of Eastham. I have written plays about Mabel Dodge Luhan and Gertrude Stein, who both were in Provincetown in the famous summer of 1916, and other short plays that some of them in the Playwrights Festival. Anything else? Anybody? No questions? Okay. What's your temperature down there, Lucy?
80 degrees. We've got the air conditioner.
Nice.
I was in the pool this morning. Yes.
Oh, I just wanted to say I saw Susan's play about the 16 magazine publisher at the Barnstable Comedy Club, and it was wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was the staged reading of that. Thanks very much, John.
Yeah.
Well, everybody have Matt's script. We used to be able to follow it online. Jim set up this wonderful thing, but I do not have those capabilities. So, yeah,
Just let me. Just, if I can get this over here, maybe we can. Just bear with me.
so do you have casting ideas while he's working on that, Matt?
She has to.
I do not. Any suggestions are welcome. Anybody who would like to read is more than welcome.
Yeah, I'd love to read.
What would you
Wonderful.
like to read, Linda? Which role?
I like Jane.
You want to read Jane?
Yeah, I like to.
Who would like to read Margaret? Sue, okay. Sue's
I
gonna read
will.
Margaret. Linda's gonna read Jane, and we need a George. Let me get my, I've got it on this. Oh, I've lost it. Hold on.
I can see.
How many men do we need, Matt?
2 men, 2 women, and then there are some lengthy stage directions as well.
Yeah.
I can do one of them if you'd like.
John should.
Okay, you want to read one of the, okay, Grand Illumination, George.
Okay.
George and Henry, yeah.
And
You
then
want
I'll nominate John Schulman for doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
John, an
Oh.
actor.
I'll take a nomination. That's better than throwing my hat in the ring. For George or Joseph, is that what we've got?
Henry.
Henry, I'll do Henry.
Okay.
Did
Is
you
there
want
any
to
Henry
read?
in this section? I think it is just George and Joseph.
Oh, right, he's not here. That's
Okay, you want to take George?
okay.
And Jim, were you going to read? Or
Yeah.
John?
John? Okay. It's right here.
Joseph.
Joseph? Okay.
And I think there's a waiter. It's a nice little cameo. John Anderson. I nominate John Anderson as the waiter.
Okay.
You got it.
And
Yeah.
who's, Matt, do you want to read your stage directions or not?
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Okay.
And if we could share, if Margaret, if you disable if you enable screen sharing.
Tell me the screen sharing. It's green.
Okay. It's okay. We'll work on it next time. I don't want to.
One participant can, is it multiple participants can share simultaneously?
Yes.
Okay, I'll click on that. Look at that.
The script.
I've got to find. There's the stop. Let me see if I can make it bigger.
Oh, great.
Is everyone cool with that? Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay.
Mhm.
Did you see it?
Give it a try.
I'll be right back.
Don't pay any attention to the number of tabs I've open. This is my 3rd screen. You're so.
Oh, my gosh.
It's just how I operate. It's embarrassing. Okay, now, John, which role
Yes.
are you gonna do? and which role
Am
are
I
you-
George? Is that what we said?
That
George
would
and Joseph are the 2 roles.
Okay. I'll be Joseph if you be George. That's fine.
John, were you in the Lady Hamlet this summer?
Yes,
Oh, that was marvelous.
thank you.
Yeah, loved
Oh,
it.
wait, that was you. Oh my God. Yeah, I really liked your performance.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I got to say to be or not to be in Yiddish. It's my lifetime goal. And I think it's as close as I'm getting to the role of Hamlet, and that's close enough.
Oh, that was wonderful.
Thanks.
I do.
All right. Okay, stage directions. Matt, go ahead.
All right, ready?
Mhm. Thank
All
you.
right, year 1864, Shenandoah Valley, Virginia, interior Grand Caverns, where the annual Grand Illumination Ball is taking place. The setting is almost exactly the same. That's a reference to an earlier scene, sorry. But 52 years earlier, the stage is lined with the cave walls and illuminated by hundreds of candles. A band plays in front of a large rock face. A bar is set up along the back wall, utilizing the cavern's natural ledges to hold the bottles and glasses. Some standing tables have been set up around which guests gather, and for others, natural rock formations serve as makeshift tables and seats. Several attendees mill about, filling but not crowding the stage. Some come and go throughout the play, indicating that the ball extends further into the caves on either side. One or two couples will often dance to the music when a full stage choreographed number is not happening. Margaret and Jane stand together at a table, each holding a drink and surveying the ball. George stands alone to one side, his nicest clothes still paling in comparison to those of most others present. He even wears boots instead of dress shoes. Henry is among those socializing in the background. After a pause, Jane speaks with resignation. As she does so, Margaret is more focused on the men passing by. She smiles and curtsies occasionally, while Jane doesn't seem to notice them.
How many hundreds of times has this moment been described to you? How often did you implore your parents to tell and retell the tale of your cotillion? What you wear, how you look while you were dancing, the words you'd use when a handsome man extended his hand? Do you remember what your mother would say when she caught you as a little girl swimming in her silk and pearls and shuffling about in her finest shoes? The ones so big that you'd step straight out of them unless you curled your toes up in the front. And now the day is here, and our debut has been relegated to a damp cavern. I find it nearly intolerable to think that the bullets above ground couldn't possibly cease flying, even just for an evening, just long enough for us to set foot in a real ballroom. Wouldn't the gentlemen rather spend a few simple hours dancing and talking in all the young girls? Wouldn't they prefer that to their usual ritual of using their feet for nothing other than trudging through the mud? Or using their hands for nothing other than keeping their gunpowder dry? Or their eyes for nothing other than trying to distinguish blue jackets from gray jackets on the dust light?
Are you quite finished, Jane? How many men have cast smiles upon you tonight, to which you've remained willfully blind? Perhaps this is not the ballroom we imagined for so long, nor are these the well-populated ranks of debutantes and bachelors. But are we not dressed in our finest clothing? Are we not the center of attention and the objects of envy? More importantly, are we not surrounded by an adequate selection of men who summon more and more each minute the courage to invite us to join them on the floor? It seems that the most crucial elements of our debut have not been accomplished.
It may be called our debut, that is. After all, this is not a cotillion, but simply a ball for the waning middle age, at which they've decided to permit few young women to be presented and to make believe they are truly joining with proper society. Well, I may not have your beauty, Margaret, nor your fine clothes, nor your experiences with the highfalutin, but I know at the very least that such a society does not exist underground.
You speak as though you were a pauper. Yes, my threads are finer, my heels taller, and my reputation wider. But you are included in this debut, however unconventional it may be, because you have the natural disposition of a lady, and your roots are far from shameful.
I can't afford such nativity. Natural disposition does not go nearly as far as in such circles as does friendship with a true aristocrat. I did not effect my own admission tonight into this cave. Rather, I have you to thank for that.
Whatever the case may be, I wonder whether it behooves us to spend our evening evaluating our present circumstance rather than participating in it.
What have you accomplished this evening other than fulfilling your duty to officially debut for the sake of propriety, announcing your engagement to Harry?
Henry.
Henry and I are not engaged.
You are soon to be.
According to my mother and father.
You continue to protest? Haven't you yet rid yourself of the rebellious notions of your youth?
I am still in my youth.
So is Henry, more or less. That alone should be motivation to marry him. Besides, he's handsome, wealthy, and you couldn't find a more proper last name in all of Virginia, aside perhaps from yours.
But have you seen him dance?
As a matter of fact, yes, he wasn't at all inept. That can't possibly be the complaint that lies behind your protestations. His dancing? Margaret, how ungrateful.
Ungrateful. Since when do you care how much gratitude I show for the plottings of others?
Others? Your parents.
And I have no quarrel with my parents, only with their plottings.
Are you serious? You're serious, aren't you? You intend to evade the marriage, and I suppose you expect your parents' acquiescence.
Do not misrepresent my mother and father. They do not cling as desperately to pedigree as many others do. They chose Henry because he is available and suitable, and they truly believe his to be the kind of soul I would appreciate, perhaps even love. It is mere coincidence that he boasts the most superlative upbringing.
I suppose they would just as readily have arranged you with a craftsman or a miller.
Of course not, Jane. Do not be contrarian simply for the sake of it. How many times have I told you that? No, of course, they would only match me with someone whose pedigree reaches a certain threshold. But that minimum threshold is far below the example set by Henry. If I were to find another truly suitable to me, my mother would not vehemently protest. After all, I am arranged to marry Henry only by casual suggestion and conversation among our mothers. No offense will be given or taken if we do not, in the end, see one another betrothed.
I did not realize such an arrangement would be so cavalier among families such as yours.
How highly do you esteem my family, Jane? We have no expansive empire that must be protected through the perfectly designed aristocratic union. My mother is more concerned with when and not whom I marry. You know, my mother is in ill health, and my father's days even fewer. I believe they wish to send me off with their blessing while they still can, and in their late hour, I feel more and more that they wish to return to my mother's family in England. They won't be able to weather that passage for much longer. I am steadily approaching a deadline, more than one, I'm afraid. This may be my final opportunity to find an alternative to Henry, who sparks in me real feelings of love, or at least feelings which resemble it.
That is the best you hope for.
My time is limited, Jane. If I had 4 years at my disposal to travel about and attend social functions and balls, then perhaps I could find what one might call real love. But such feeling, especially when one has resolved to be honest with oneself, is scarce as hen's teeth. And I have weeks, not years, before preparations must be underway for a wedding, whether to Henry or to another. At that time, I find it realistic to expect that I might encounter someone who evokes feelings that are moderately more pleasant than those which are neutral.
That seems rather an expedient approach.
Falling in love is a luxury, it seems even I can have. But cultivating love, or at least heartfelt companionship, is perhaps still one of the few options available to me. Of the very limited number of men I may meet between this moment and the moment I am officially acknowledged by the greater community as a woman, all those men, most of them are right here in this cabin. I'm acutely aware of each passing second as each one seems to tick away one more tiny fraction of fate. Yet, here we are discussing propriety and misfortune and status. You may either turn your eyes away from any hand which may be brave enough to extend itself toward you, or you may get us both another julep from the bar and help me select a partner worth dancing with. I am rich, Jane, and you are rich enough. Now let's drive.
Jane leaves Margaret and goes to order drinks at the bar. Margaret greets some passers-by and mingles here and there. After a moment, Joseph enters stage right, walking slowly, looking around the cavern ballroom. Meanwhile, Jane has been approached by a man at the bar and is occupied for the moment. Joseph's meandering route toward the bar takes him within a few steps of where Margaret is standing. She is speaking with another gentleman when she notices him. She excuses herself hastily from the conversation, and nearly lunges into Joseph's path. Startled, Joseph almost jumps, his body seemingly unable to decide whether to flee, draw a weapon, or remain composed. He tries to commit to the latter, collecting himself as Margaret does the same.
Oh, hello.
Apologies, madam. I didn't mean to.
Please, it was I who didn't look where she was going. A terrible habit of mine, I'm afraid. I'm surprised I remained on my feet for the duration of the cotillion ceremony.
Well, yes. Well, you were very graceful.
Oh, you saw. I hadn't noticed you.
I arrived partway through. I believe most of the young ladies had already walked the floor and been introduced.
Yes, unfortunately, a bit of a lackluster affair. Not exactly where one dreams of their debut.
A unique setting for it, nonetheless.
I agree. There is a particular kind of charm to be found down here, despite the near certainty of ruining our dresses in stank conditions.
Yours remains pristine thus far.
Due mostly to the fact that I've barely taken a step. I would perhaps be open to rectifying that with a dance, however great the risk. Oh, I see. You are attending as an invitee of the Grand Illumination Ball, not the attended cotillion? My mistake. As you're so young, I wrongly assumed.
It's quite all right. I suppose there does tend to be a bit of a distinct split in ages down here.
I admit it is an odd mixing of events, though I see no reason for a strict division between those here to partake in the annual ball and those here to see us young ladies introduced to the same society that throws such lavish balls. Indeed, perhaps there is something rather apropos about a debut adjacent to a real aristocratic ball. We'll waste no time in our transition from debutantes to, well, to whatever it is we are after tonight.
Aristocratic?
It seems my friend Jane's influence is pervading my vocabulary. That's how she would describe it. Where has she gone off to? There, by the bar. That's her. Jane.
2 juleps now sit on the bar in front of Jane, who looks up from her conversation with the other man. She looks over at Margaret and Joseph, her eyes immediately widening. She swiftly turns away from them and hunches down, so trying to hide behind nothing. She takes a large sip of her julep, and we see her reassure the man next to her that she's all right.
Oh, is that okay? What an odd girl, very shy sometimes. After that drink, I'm sure she'll be glad to come and say hello.
Joseph's eyes linger on Jane for a moment. Then he looks around uneasily, becoming flustered.
You know, that's all right. I actually must be going.
Oh?
Yes, my sincerest apologies, but I've just remembered I must meet an acquaintance. I had completely forgotten, and he'll be waiting for me. Very lovely to meet you.
Oh, well, pleasure.
Joseph glances in Jane's direction before hastily departing. He walks toward the left side of the stage, glancing over his shoulder. Jane has left the man at the bar and is trying to follow Joseph discreetly, though keeping her distance. She evades other conversationalists while not taking her eyes from Joseph. She looks a bit ridiculous, and Margaret watches with confusion before becoming engaged in another conversation. Joseph is unsure where to go. Jane eventually takes a few steps toward him. Joseph turns swiftly to exit and bumps straight into George, who was looking the other way.
Excuse me,
Joseph and George look up at one another, both reacting with extreme surprise. Joseph turns and takes almost a sprinting step away from George, but realizes that Jane has grown closer. He turns on his heels, takes a step or two in a few different directions, but doesn't want to approach Jane, George, or Margaret. Meanwhile, George's first reaction is uncertainty as to whether he himself should flee or whether he should draw the pistol from his side. He does not want to call attention to himself, but is not calm. He takes a large step away from Joseph, then steps back toward his table and puts down his drink. His hand goes to his holster, but quickly retracts. He picks up his drink again and once more puts his hand to his gun. Both men are extremely flustered. Neither wants to cause a scene, and neither is sure of the motivations of the other. A few ball attendees observe the scene with confusion. Jane is also confused and uncertain, and the result is a bumbling series of indecisive moves from all three. Finally, Joseph hastens back to Margaret, interrupting her conversation and extending his hand.
On second thought, madam, I would be delighted if you'd have me for a dance.
Right now?
Joseph glances at Jane, who keeps a distance, but is slowly advancing.
Unless you can think of a more opportune time.
Margaret smiles and Joseph leads her out onto the floor. He gestures to the band, which gets set for a song. A few couples take notice and also get ready to dance. As the band begins to play, half a dozen or so more couples have joined. Jane and George step back to make room for the dancers, both gazes fixed on Joseph and Margaret. The band plays an upbeat tune and the couples dance. Soon, Jane smiles at another attendee who eagerly extends his hand and they join the dance. Jane tries to lead her partner toward Joseph, who tries in turn to evade her. Both attempt to do so without alerting their partners that something is amiss. George remains to one side, sipping his drink and watching. When the music ends, both dancing pairs are stage left, as is George. Joseph bows to Margaret and dashes into a very small adjacent room, far stage left, before she can say anything. Margaret takes a step towards him, but then lets him go. The room is fully visible to the audience and is separated from the main room by a small gap in the cave wall. Jane leaves her partner with similar haste and goes to follow Joseph, but Margaret grabs her by the arm.
Jane, oh, did you see that?
Margaret,
Come, I need another drink. You never did deliver my julep. Oh, did you see it, Jane, how he moved?
Margaret leads a reluctant Jane to the bar. Seeing this, George unholsters his pistol and follows Joseph into the other room. There is a couple kissing in the small room. Upon Joseph's entrance, they depart with annoyance. Joseph keeps his hand off his pistol so as not to alert them. They pass by George on their way out, who conceals his pistol. George points his pistol at Joseph, who faces away. Joseph has just begun to unholster his gun when George enters.
Don't.
Joseph takes his hand from the holster and slowly turns around. George keeps his pistol trained on Joseph.
Are you here for me? Is she?
Who?
A girl.
No, George, I think she's here for me. I assumed you were with her.
You two weren't trying to communicate.
On the contrary, I was doing all I could to keep a distance, lest she produce a knife. It seems her friend has occupied her for the moment.
You think they tracked you here somehow?
No, I imagine chance is to blame for this one. Few know my face, but I've seen that combination of surprise and hatred on enough continences to know I've stumbled upon an enemy. I was hoping to find some exit path through here, but it seems the only way out is back, and I suspect I won't make it back across that floor alive. That is, if I make it out of this tiny little enclave. Are you not under strict orders to kill me on sight?
I am.
Well,
A man carrying 2 drinks on a tray enters the little room, and George tucks his pistol into his jacket before the man notices. The man addresses George.
Sir, your drink.
George silently accepts the drink with his free hand.
I brought one for your friend as well. Welcome, sir.
The man steps toward Joseph and extends an identical drink. After a pause, Joseph accepts it.
Enjoy the ball, gentlemen. Watch out for those debutantes. Best to stick with the older ladies, eh?
George and Joseph don't react.
Gentlemen.
The man exits. George untucks his pistol, and the 2 men are silent for a spell.
I don't suppose you'd hear an old friend out, whether or not you intend to toe the mark at the end of it all.
George pauses, lowering the pistol, then lifting his drink slightly.
Your health.
And yours.
They drink. The lights fade over the little room. Margaret and Jane are standing at a table slightly stage right of center, having procured their drinks. They clink their glasses.
To chance encounters.
indeed, to chance encounters. Say, switch places with me.
Why?
I like the way the ballroom looks that way.
You are an odd one, Jane.
They switch places such that Jane is facing the little room, stage left.
Anyway, did you see him, Jane? Did you see the way he danced? It was almost like the music took him, as though each new direction he stepped came from a sudden, urgent inspiration.
I saw him.
Well, didn't you think him splendid? He did light out right after our encounter. Then again, he had mentioned needing to meet an acquaintance. I assume that man he's with now, a business partner, perhaps. Oh, I do wonder how he makes his living. What charm.
Margaret, I did not mean to sound unsupportive of your efforts to find yourself a more suitable partner. In fact, the more I think about it, the more conviction I feel that Henry is wrong for you and that you deserve to marry someone for reasons that are closely resemble love. But I cannot in good conscience advise you to pursue that man any further. I immediately had a hunch about him and the way he strode and sneered. I decided less than noble soul.
What in heaven are you talking about, Jane? I'm to trust the vague warnings of your intuition? I'm the one whom he held in his arms, and I did not detect the slightest deficit of nobility, nor of strength for that matter.
Margaret, there are many other bachelors presented here tonight, and I think that to limit your pursuit at this early hour would be...
Do I detect a hint of jealousy, Jane?
Pardon?
I saw how you maneuvered yourself toward us at every possible opportunity. Why? To get a better look at him? That poor fellow you allowed to take you out onto the floor. He must have been utterly confused as to why he was being dragged about by a young lady, seemingly in pursuit of a more handsome partner.
You're mistaken, Margaret. I have no interest in your mystery man. I am simply warning that I saw in him something sinister.
Sinister? Have you neglected to inform me about the psychic training you've undergone? Should I perhaps lay out some cards so that you may determine the quality of our potential marriage, or better yet, the causes of our demise? I've always wondered how it'll happen, loose rock formation crumbling at just the right moment. Or will it be something boring like scarlet fever, or even worse, old age? Perhaps this cave has spooked you. I admit it has a bit of a creepy quality, yet beautiful also.
Please don't misinterpret me, Margaret. I'm simply trying to be of some benefit to you.
My dear Jane, I am teasing you. Your eccentric ideas have never bothered me. Please continue to amuse all you like with warnings of doom should I pursue this handsome fellow. And don't worry, we will find you a suitable candidate as well. Perhaps not that fellow you danced with just now. He may be a lost cause now that you've jostled him about. But as you say, the pool of bachelors has proved slightly deeper than we thought. Let us keep an eye out for some of the larger fish.
Margaret?
And drink up, Jane. It's improper for me to outpace you to such a great degree. I have no intention of slowing down to match you.
The lights fade over the ballroom and rise over the little room. George and Joseph now both sit, their glasses half empty. George's gun is on the table in front of him, but neither man pays much attention to it. As they talk, they sip their drinks, and Joseph rolls and smokes a cigarette.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So, Matt, what questions, do you have questions you'd like answered?
Yeah, this particular scene as it stands isn't the start of the play, but I might make it the start of the play. I'm not as it stands. There's a scene about half a century later in this same cave where some of these characters appear in their much older forms, and then we go back to 1864. I think it would be cleaner if we started with this. I added the other scene, which isn't fully developed yet, for the sake of clarity. I just thought it might be a little bit easier to follow. So my main question is, or my questions would be, one, does this feel clear enough in terms of what is happening? I want to not do too much explaining, but I know that there is a lot of explaining in this scene, even as it stands, with the preceding scene supposed to help clarify a little bit. This is kind of a wordy and explainy section. So I want to know, does that take away from it? Does it feel too much like there's a ton of information you need to be brought up to speed on, and it's just too much spoken information at once? And then also, does the sort of intrigue hold? Does it effectively function as a scene that makes you want to know, why Jane knows who this is and why Joseph is nervous, et cetera? Does the actual drama of it hold up? And then other suggestions I would be open to, but especially structurally speaking, I feel it's a bit messy and a bit disjointed. So I guess general thoughts I'm open to, but mostly I'm looking for, does it feel too explainy, or does it feel like it could function as an effective opening? And then also as just a piece of drama, does it feel intriguing? Is there an instinct to read further?
I know for me, I was drawn in when the two gentlemen were separated and the pistols came out. I went, what the hell is going on now? What is this? And then Jane came into the whole thing, and she might kill one of them. What on earth? That's before that, it was just very, okay, this is a debutante ball and the da 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 da. But I was really sucked in when all of that started to happen.
Got it.
Candace had her hand up. Yeah.
One of the things I felt, Matt, and there's a lot going on in it, and yeah, you do have to explain a lot. The word confusion kept coming up for me, and I couldn't tell if you wanted me to be confused or if I just wasn't getting it. And I think several times characters use a word, I can't remember if they use the word confusion or the word, but they use words that imply there's some mystery here and some people don't know what's going on. And I felt like I kept waiting to get grounded somewhere. And instead I got more mystery and more confusion. And maybe that's what you're going for.
Yeah, thank you. That is partly what I'm going for. Just like very briefly, the play is there is an element of mystery there. Joseph is wanted for a particular action, and Jane is one of the people tasked with finding him. And so in the early scene, all you learn is that they know each other somehow, that there is some storied past here, and that something happened in this cave, half a century earlier, that has sort of brought them to where they are. So it's possible that I need the context of the first scene. So this is good feedback. If there really wasn't enough in this scene to ground you, then maybe I do need to sort of expand and clarify in that first scene and leave it there to help inform this scene. But to an extent that is, I think it's a fine line, because to an extent that is what I'm going for, a sense of who are these people and how do they know one another. This seems, as somebody else said, like, at first it seems like just a conversation about the ball, and then becomes very quickly something wholly different. So yeah, I think that's something I have to think about is how to sort of walk that line, because I do want there to be a little bit of an element of disjoint and confusion, but I still need engagement for, on the part of the audience.
John Anderson?
One of the things that the scene before this introduces that I found intriguing is the idea that Margaret's now dead husband, whose ashes are in the urn, changed his name. And there's a question as to whether he'll be buried under his real name or his assumed name. And I thought that was an important question to put in my head as the audience from the beginning, trying to figure out, okay, who is she ultimately going to be married to? So that's the main thing that I thought the first scene provided, that if you eliminated it, we'd lose.
Got it. That makes sense. And I think, assuming I keep that first scene, which I think is where I'm leaning, I'm going to need to expand and add clarity to that as well. But yeah, I think you're right that sort of helps set up, there's going to be an issue of identity here. There's going to be an issue of mystery. There's going to be an element of mystery. And if that maybe is a way of easing the audience into like, okay, hold on for a bit, it will become clear, but here's a tiny bit of the backstory. And then it may be that the scene we just read is a little more palatable because you sort of know the general direction, or the questions at least that are going to be addressed.
Jim?
Yeah, in the first scene, the character's name is Man, and then it goes to George, and it goes back to Man, and that kind of confused me. It was setting me up to not really understanding, okay, is this a third character, or am I supposed to think, okay, this is the playwright playing with the name, because it gets to the end, that scene, and it's which name is it? And so I'm thinking, okay, but I think in this case, you want to be really honest and direct with the audience and let them in on what it is, especially the readers, to give the name. At the end of the play, I was unsure exactly what. So did they change identities? Did they not? Why did they change identities? And what was the outcome? I was trying to go back to the first scene, and I wasn't putting it together very effectively. I think for a lot of the script, the characters are talking around things a great deal. They're kind of trying to express, their station, their situation, and it's almost, we're going back in a time, but I think even back in that time, people spoke directly to each other. So I was waiting for elements that would come in which they'd speak very directly, so that stupid, ignorant, lead-brained Jim could figure out what was going on, because a lot of times I wasn't quite there with it. And if you are wanting to kind of sneak the details up on the audience, keep in mind that dramatic irony is that the audience knows more than the characters on stage. So keep that keeps the audience kind of engaged and going forward. It's not always just asking what's going on. It's like, oh my God, when are the actors going to figure it out? When the characters are going to figure it out? So I was kind of expecting to see that a little bit more, and I was kind of missing out on that. I just want you to be a little bit more direct for lead-headed Jim when you're writing. That would really help me out a great deal.
Yeah, no, thank you. That makes total sense. It is tough with that first scene, because I may have put in names when I didn't mean to, but it is supposed to be a bit of a mystery who we're talking to, because there is a change of identity, and Joseph ends up taking on a different name in order to escape this persecution. And so if that first scene stands, then the person you see alive in 1916, you won't know if that, as an audience member, you wouldn't know if that is George or Jane or somebody else. And so I did want that mystery to stand, but I absolutely see what you're saying about the dramatic irony. I could make it both more clear and introduce that ironic element that might just sort of help push it along. So,
well, it's all about, okay, it makes the turn should always be a surprise, but make complete sense, and with the audience knowing more too. The other thing I wanted to ask, I'm sorry, Margaret, can I ask one more thing?
I'll keep going, yeah.
Okay, is I was unclear. Okay, was it about the story itself? Now, was it a friendly fire situation? Which side of was one a Union soldier and the other one a rebel? They lived across the street from each other, and I know that they often, people were split up. But why, if he was shooting at who we thought was the officer, it turns out to be the wife of a general who is masquerading as an officer, is that on the north or is that on the south? Is it a friendly fire? And then, if they are competing against each other, isn't it just natural that you would shoot your enemy? I'm not sure why all of a sudden if he did shoot the opposing, the other army, why that would make it so special, like any other soldier. So I guess I'm, again, lead-headed Jim. I was missing out on some of these details, and I need a little bit more clarity. Go a little bit slower for me so I can figure it out and spell things out for me.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's useful as well to know that conversation you're referring to later on, where Joseph explains what happened. I of course it's not concise, and that is a very long conversation, which is I'm in the process of editing, and I want to see if I can make it effective as a very sort of long, almost monologue. Just to clear that up, they are on opposite sides of the Civil War, though it's never made clear who's fighting for which side. In their conversations, you don't find out who's fighting for the Union, and vice versa. And the situation that he was in is that he is unwilling to fire his weapon at enemy soldiers. He's unwilling to fire at anyone. He's been sort of enlisted, and he fires his weapon, but he always fires well above the front line. He does not fire actually at the soldiers. And so he was getting tired though, and his rifle dropped lower than he intended. And so he actually, even though he is someone who, and he's kind of embarrassed by this, won't fire at the enemy, accidentally ended up shooting a captain who turned out to actually be the wife of the general. And so the irony there is that he is now sort of being hunted for this, what's considered this atrocity, even though he actually is somebody who, as he describes it, feels this sort of strange unwillingness. And I'm exploring this phenomenon, which a lot of soldiers experience, of an unwillingness to fire at the enemy, but he's uncomfortable even sort of explaining this. He finally does to George, but he feels uncomfortable really revealing that he's not willing to actually follow his orders.
So just to follow up on that, why is he unlike any other of the opposing who could have, why is he special, and why is the Union or the rebels, why are they trying to hide him? And in that, instead of just being in with the army and with his colleagues, his fellow soldiers, I'm not sure why he has to go in hiding, and how he ends up at the caverns at a cotillion, to dance. So I'm having problems putting those elements together. And like I said before, it's just probably me being very thick, and I apologize for that.
No worries at all. This is very helpful. I think that it's a clarity issue. He does explain, though maybe he needs to do it more clearly, that after this happened, they basically sent people after him. That's part of Jane's job too. She's a spy working for one of the sides in the war, and she is after him. And they've gone after him because they want to punish him for having killed, there's a beloved general, and his wife has been, as they see it, murdered, even though she was masquerading as a captain. So they have sent people after him, and he was told to go to this social function, to this cotillion / grand illumination ball, and to try and hook up with an operative from his side of the war, who will provide him with clothing and information on where to go to hide out. And so he's down there trying to find his contact, but kind of realizes it's a futile endeavor, because he just, A, he doesn't think he will find him in this crowd, and B, he ends up getting cornered anyway by George and Jane. So that's why he's down there. It's an attempt to get him into hiding. And the reason is that people from the other side are coming after him specifically because they know who it was who killed this woman, and they're seeking what they see as justice for that.
Linda?
Yeah, why does he not kill him when he takes out his gun, and what stops him from killing Joseph?
To me, it's sort of one of the motifs here is like indifference, or one of the themes, I guess. He doesn't care enough. George is someone, and he talks about this later, that he doesn't feel conviction enough really in his cause. He follows orders because he thinks that it makes him useful. He wants to feel useful. But in this particular situation, he's sitting talking with a childhood friend, and he just doesn't care enough to do it. And it's sort of the same reason that he doesn't care enough to hold on to his identity in the end, that he gives it up because he feels sort of like he's already lost it. And so what's the point? And so that theme of indifference comes back, and he just doesn't care enough to do it.
You're a really good storyteller. I mean, it's a fascinating story. I just want some more drama in it and less words. But I'm fascinated by the story. There were so many questions I had about it. Mainly, why did they kill him at that moment? They draw their guns, and neither of them shoots. Yeah.
You're right. Maybe that can be I can give a more compelling reason. My thinking was it's the same reason that he doesn't, that he convinces Jane to stop doing what she's doing too. If this isn't something, if you actually have Jane wants things in her life. She wants to feel differently about her life. And George can't bring himself to really feel enough. He can't feel enough. He can't summon enough sort of passion or emotion. He feels kind of numb. And that indifference is what allows him to not follow the order to kill Joseph. It's what allows him to give his identity away. He really feels sort of empty as a person. But that's definitely, I hear your feedback. That's definitely something that I can sort of try to convey through more drama and more clearly.
I just need more about. So they both are not don't want to kill or fight.
Okay. Yeah, for different reasons. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, George does fight in battle. George will fire his weapon at enemy soldiers, but he doesn't see enough reason to kill Joseph in this situation.
The other thing is, why it's war. People kill each other. Why does one man get called out because he killed someone. Isn't this part of war?
Yes, in the story he killed the wife of a beloved
Yeah.
general.
If
She
it
was
had been a woman, would he have been in the same trouble?
no, if it had actually been a captain, no, they would not have been.
Okay, that's, yeah.
Hmm.
Thank you.
John Anderson? I
John.
can't mute.
Sorry about that.
Mhm.
The phone rang and I muted myself when the phone rang.
Mhm.
I was surprised to hear you say that we're not supposed to know who's on which side, because it seemed to me, and I'm trying to figure out why now, I just assumed this cotillion is taking place in the South. And I'm wondering if it's because I Googled, Grand Illumination, Cavern Ball, whatever, and found that this is a real cave, and they actually did have cotillions there, and it's in Virginia. So maybe that influenced me to assume, but I think even before that, I assumed we're in the South and that Joseph has to be fighting for the Union, even though he grew up near George. And I'm intrigued by this idea that we may never be able to figure out who's on which side, if you can sustain that. But it seems to me, I don't know, maybe I'm assuming there'd be Southern accents, or maybe there would be other clues. Actually, it's interesting because it now explains a certain kind of vagueness that I sensed about the setting, even though it's so specific about the cave. I kept thinking, well, we don't know anything about how Margaret's family will be affected if their side loses the war. They're planning to go to England. And I was thinking, well, wait a minute, if they're Southerners and they get, their livelihood destroyed in the war, will they be able to do that? So maybe I was overthinking it, but it's just, I'd be curious to hear you talk about what your thinking is about not identifying who's on which side.
Sure. Yeah. So for me, it wasn't supposed to be, stated in the play. It wasn't supposed to be something that could be figured out. The logic in the play is just that there was a battle in Virginia, and Joseph, that's where this happened. And Joseph has been, told to go to this cavern that is nearby the battlefield. And so either of them could have been in Virginia, because both Union and Confederate soldiers would be in Virginia at this battlefield. And they both grew up near each other, so there's really no hint as to who actually fights for which side. And I did, I based, this setting. I went and I toured these caverns, and I read about the balls that they had there. The Grand Illumination Ball, as you say, is a real thing. And one thing I was struck by was you can still go see names and dates written in ink on the walls of the cave. And that sort of inspired the idea at the end that when I was looking at these dates that talked about, that were from the Civil War and people's names written there, what were the stories behind these names? And that was sort of the inspiration to decide, well, maybe somebody wrote that name, even though it wasn't actually their name. Maybe there was some interesting story behind it. In terms of the not knowing which side, one of the important points in this, and maybe I need to make it clearer, but one of the important points for me in the play is the unwillingness to fire at enemy soldiers. That's actually a pretty frequent phenomenon for soldiers in war, and something I think is really interesting that not a lot of soldiers can really talk about, or is often difficult to talk about. And so that unwillingness to fire, I didn't want connected with a certain side. I didn't want people to say, oh, well, he's unwilling to fire because he actually agrees with the other side or whatever. I just wanted it to be, his inability to pull the trigger in a violent situation, his inability to take a life, basically. And which I thought also played into the switch of identities. It just, the whole theme of never even knowing who anyone really was in the first place.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it comes through loud and clear, the concept of not being able to fire. I thought that was lovely. I really loved that part about it, and especially the fact that he couldn't really put it in the first person, had to be in the third. It was really fascinating to me that he couldn't own up to it. I thought that was beautiful. I would think that two men who hadn't seen each other for a while, who grew up across the street from each other and met each other, would ask each other, why did you support this side of the war and not the other one. And you are setting it in a seminal moment of American history. And yet I feel very, very little of the weight to the Civil War here. And I think that's a missed opportunity. And I think that's something that I would encourage you to explore, because I think it would give the play a little bit more weight or gravity than currently it's like what happens at a cotillion in Identity. And I think you have an opportunity to make this even resonate a little bit more, particularly if you thought about, okay, what is Margaret? What is she? What are they supporting? Her whole history of wealth and privilege is founded on slavery. You know, why those kind of elements, I was kind of missing that. I was expecting that to poke through at some point, because I went back and looked and read the date and was like, no, this is during the Civil War. They're talking about the Civil War. And I guess I just wanted to have a little bit more of that in there. But it's your play, of course, do whatever you want with it. But that was something that I felt.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And I see what you're saying. And I sort of thought about the role that the war itself should play in the script. And I sort of intentionally tried to put it in the background. It's referenced at the beginning, but it's not, you know, they may talk about some battles, but I sort of wanted that irony of individual experience is often defined in such isolation from what's going on. I mean, you know, ideologically, we support one side of this fight because it's the attempt to abolish slavery, and yet that's actually absent from the discussion about taking life in war or, you know, the family wealth. Their mindsets aren't even on that, and I actually kind of thought that that was defining feature for a couple of them in terms of their characters, was that the turmoil they're going through is related, to their romantic engagements or their insecurity about whether they are, you know, truly a man or a good soldier because they can't fire, etc. Or you know, do I feel enough to continue on living my life? Do I have enough sort of passion in me? And the irony of that sort of taking place next to an incredibly important ideological conflict that we would all weigh in on in a particular way because it was such a seminal moment. They actually tried to push it to the background to show the contrast between this focus on the internal, focus on like the self and one's own goings on, sometimes at the expense of acknowledging sort of the greater circumstance. So it was deliberate, but I see an argument for perhaps bringing in more of that context.
Are you, Matt, are you referring to what Jim was speaking to about why they aren't identified as to which side? Is that what you were speaking to just now? Excuse me.
Well, it was part of that, yeah, but also, but the general thing of so yeah, them not being identified, not knowing exactly what, you know, Margaret's talking about her family in England, and you get the sense that she's extremely wealthy. Well, is that because of slavery? And, you know, she lives in an insulated world in a sense. She's not thinking about whether her wealth is, you know, created in an ethical way or not. It's just not even relevant. And so that was part of why I left that out of her conversations, because I thought for her, it might not be. And even with Jane, who seems to be in some ways an ideologue, she has more feelings about her role and what her duty is to do. She's associated with one side, and so she needs to follow orders, and she's very strict about that. And not identifying her with one side kind of, I thought it was almost making the point that like it's duty for the sake of duty, not necessarily tied to a particular ideology, even though we can think of her as probably identifying with one side or the other in the war. But by not knowing which side, it's sort of just pointing out the type of mindset that she has, which is, I need to follow orders, I need to play my part in this conflict, regardless of which side I happen to have been, you know, through circumstance, become aligned with.
Candace?
This may also be my lead-headedness, like Jim, but like, I don't feel like I know who Margaret and Jane are to each other. I don't know if Jane's a whole lot older than Margaret. Is she like an older sister? Is she a friend? Have they just met? Have they grown up together? Are they important to each other? Are they cousins? Are they, I don't know. At least from this scene, I don't know who they are. And especially in relation to each other.
Yeah, Fair enough. There isn't a whole lot about who they are. They're friends who have known each other for quite some time. Later in the play, they do talk. Margaret finds out that Jane is actually kind of a spy for one side in this war, and they talk about that deceit from Jane. But I could make it clearer, sort of what their backstory is, and that they are close friends.
Yeah.
But you never know whether Jane is actually spying for the side that Margaret and her family would be aligned with, or whether she's spying against that side. It's just yet another absence within a relationship of the broader context, which you would think would be so important, but they have such insular mindsets, kind of, that it's not present.
Pamela?
Can you read that?
Connection is unstable.
Yes, so some of the things I'm hearing and I'm not.
Oh, okay.
So forgive me if I don't sound right, because Brewster can have this problem. So Matt, overall, when I was picturing this, listening to it as a movie, as a film, kind of like a Jane Austen film. And I think that would show a lot of these things that we're not getting, because I had that confusion about the women too. And so I have a question for Margaret, because I missed the link for the folder. So in the future, when we see a script posted, will that be before the meeting, so we can see if and then we could read the cast and know their description, which would have helped. But that's the overall. I just felt like the dialogues were so mental, intellectual, that so much more could be shown with a film. And these people, the uniforms, the cavern is very stage-like to me and very intriguing, but all the discussions and interactions might be better in a film.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I want to go back to what, and I appreciate that, Pamela. I was going to say the long stage directions are really cinematic, because very much so. And some of them maybe could benefit from some dialogue in them. But I want to go back to what Candace first said about not feeling grounded in the script. And if we could talk about any ways and if you felt that, that could help you land in it, to be grounded. I think one of them might be being able to identify which sides they were on, the friendship, the two protagonists, the two women, understanding more about their relationship, I think would help to be grounded as well. And I'm having difficulty, I'm talking about an actor now, acting wise, having difficulty with understanding indifference then use that word as a character trait. It's not dramatic. I don't understand indifference, and it's when it's on the stage, it's very difficult for an actor to play a generalized emotional state. It has to be very specific, and it helps to be specific. Specificity helps drama as well. So I don't understand George's when you're characterizing it as indifference, it doesn't help me to get him. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I think so.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, if something could be more specific about why he doesn't act.
Yeah, I mean, he does have, and I want to clean this up and probably actually move it later, but he does have his whole thing about his wife who committed suicide, and that since then he has been trying to feel, and he's been trying to find some sort of purpose. But as he says in the play, once you realize you can't be the thing you wanted to be, you don't see much sense in being anything at all. And that to me sort of characterizes his, I mean, I guess we could call it melancholy, or if we needed more of a specific emotion from him. But that's, given that that's his backstory, that was my motivation for him not acting, because he doesn't see purpose in actions the way other people see purpose in actions.
I mean,
so
I did read that, but I didn't see that applying to every aspect of his life. Do you know? And I do. I mean, Jim?
Yeah, to kind of follow up on that, I think that's really an interesting comment, Margaret, because anytime you have two characters on stage, it's going to be kind of this. If it doesn't do that in some ways, it doesn't move forward. There's got to be, so when the men come on and you get them in this situation and they automatically disarm it, I start going on to, okay, why are they doing that? My feeling is, okay, a part of me, because I'm a gay man, said, oh, they obviously were lovers when they were younger, right? That's what this is all about. I was looking for something, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that the characters spend a lot of time talking around things, whereas I want them to know what their internal, what their spine is, what their motivation is, particularly when they're talking to each other. The women do the same thing. They're talking about the cotillion, but how they're couching that is just in general terms and not really revealing their character. I do know that Jane is the most vicious of all the characters on the stage, even worse than the waiter. You know, she really has that, you can kind of tell. Now, I want to see more examples of that with Margaret, and to see, okay, what is the grist in that relationship? Because anytime you put characters on stage, there's got to be tension, there's got to be something going on, and I want that exposed a little bit more. And I think, Margaret, you were kind of saying that as well. And thanks for bearing with me for going on.
Yeah, thank you. No, that makes total sense. I do see that as a challenge. I mean, with George, and I see what you're saying with Margaret and Jane, certainly. With George, I think it's tough. I mean, he doesn't really know what his motivations are. I mean, he's present at this ball to try and find someone else to marry to get him out of fighting. And by the end, he has given up his identity in order to go be a spy. And we find out that he works for the military for the rest of his career so that someone else can go and experience a life of love that he couldn't have. And so his motivations, even from the start of the play to the end of the play, are completely different. And he doesn't actually, it's not like he wants nothing, but he doesn't fully want anything, and he can't bring himself to ever fully act. And so it's, I guess we could say indifference, I guess we could say it's indecisiveness too, but he actually goes there for a reason. He's down there for a reason that has a tinge of optimism to it, that is quickly sort of forgotten, because he can't actualize it, he can't act on it. And so I definitely see that challenge, but it was a deliberate choice to try and make him not even understand his own motivations.
What you just said broke my heart. Okay, that's, the story itself is heartbreaking that he would do that. I want to feel that on stage. I really, because the story's great. Oh my God, he's giving up this. You know, it reminds me of Tallahassee City somehow at the very end, you know, a little bit, you know,
I'll take it.
Yeah, right. Oh boy, I would. But, you know, he's got this opportunity. So I think just showing that character arc more and not being afraid of showing the character arc through the dialogue, as opposed to talking about the peripheral, you know, go right in there. What does he want when he comes in? He's there to pick up a woman, right? I guess I want to see that. I don't want to see that. I don't want to listen to the language. I want to see him trying to do that.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah, let us see him give it up, you know, come with an intent and then lose it, you know. Again, the specificity. Has this helped at all, Matt?
Oh, immensely, absolutely. Yeah, no, many of these points have been helpful, and it's great to see what is clear and isn't clear to readers, but it's also great to hear the specific feedback about what would be more compelling. So on both those counts, I think this has been extremely helpful. Yeah.
Have you recorded it? Did you take notes?
I have a notepad, right? I have my notepad right here. Yeah, I gotcha.
Somebody that worked at the O'Neill told me, you know, that, you know, they give the playwrights, you know, a stack of note cards to take notes of critiques. And then at the end, break them down into three. One is, this is important, now pay attention to this. The next one is, it has something I'm not sure, I'll hold on to it. The other one is, I will never listen to this person again, and throw it out. So, you know, be judicious in what you choose to, but you are a great storyteller, and, you know, I want to see it further develop. John.
I noticed we're being recorded. Maybe the recording could be made available to Matt if he wanted to, you know, play over the comments later.
Oh, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Yeah, Eventide records all their, this is the Eventide Zoom source, and they record their meetings and their artistic meetings and all that. So they all automatically record. I will try to find out if they can get them to him. That would be great. Well, who is gonna, it is now 4:26. And who is signing up for next week? You need to, Linda? Yay! I can't hear you.
Mute, mute.
But
Muted her.
You muted.
why
Oh,
don't you-
good. Okay, you're gonna sign up for next week? That's wonderful. And
What's the date?
It's not next week though, correct?
I'm sorry, the 19th. The 19th. And
19th,
Lucy?
okay.
And Lucy?
18th. No. I'm gonna
No,
be
you're not.
traveling that day. I'm probably,
The
I'm
18th.
hoping to be there on time, but I might be late.
Okay. Anybody else? We need somebody else to sign up.
19th or 20th.
Somebody can't be there on the 19th. They emailed me and I
It's,
forget.
I can't, it's the
Oh.
18th, right? It is
19th.
The 18th?
18th.
Yeah,
The
I won't-
18th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe-
Yeah.
Yeah, I cannot make that meeting, but I was
Okay.
gonna sign up for the January, whatever it was, January 8th.
Okay,
Sign up for that.
so somebody else, we need 2 people, please.
You want to do it?
You're so bad.
Why?
I'm happy to go whenever you need me, but I don't want to take another one
Yeah,
soon so that
yeah,
other people
no,
can have
we
a chance.
need-
But if it's,
yeah.
I can do it.
Okay, Jim and Linda. Yay. Okay, good. This has been delightful. Thank you all so much. Matt, I hope it really helped. I hope.
it did. Thank you guys very much.
I'll find out about the recording too. Candace, please feel better. Please feel better. I will see you before the holiday, and Susan, I'm sorry that you won't be here. So have a wonderful holiday, and we'll see you
Thank
after
you.
in the new year.
That's right.
Right.
Happy holidays to everybody.
Yeah, and let me see if I can figure out how to, there's got to be a way to end this.
Leave.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hi, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.